In this tutorial, we are going to take a look at rocks, at their general characteristics and how we can study them. I will also analyze a few specific types of rocks for you. In the next two parts, we will use that knowledge to create a rock composition sprite for a side-scrolling video game. Let's jump straight into rocks. There are three general types of rocks. First of all, we have igneous rocks, named after the Latin word igni, fire. They are made of magma or lava that cooled down, thus turned into rock. The second type is called metamorphic. As the name suggests, those are the result of a metamorphosis. Rocks can be mixed up and transformed at high temperatures or under massive pressure underground. Lastly, we have sedimentary rocks. They make up for most of our planet's surface. They form through the aggregation of gravels, rock fragments, and other types of sand-sized minerals and rock grains. They are basically everywhere, in deserts, along coastlines, everywhere. I've got an article here that will give you a good, illustrated primer on the three main types of rocks we just discussed. The link's in the description below. We can search for those three types of rocks on Google and try to get a better sense of what sets them apart from one another, visually speaking. If you search for the keyword rocks, you will get random pictures. However, we can search side by side for igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks. In that case, we tend to get more relevant results. That is why it is so important to gather a bit of information on the topic we want to study before we start to paint. It gives us both a better understanding of its complexity and keywords that we can leverage in our quest for references. But I digress. At first glance, we can see that our three types of rocks are not easy to differentiate. However, you can notice that the black-spotted or porous rocks fall in the igneous category. You can really see an accumulation of rocky particles or even entire pebbles at times within sedimentary rocks. I found a page on geology.com where you can see a fair amount of rock samples categorized side by side. From a game artist's perspective, they don't look too different in the sense that you can have smooth, grainy, gray or colored rocks in all three categories. I will still try to outline one or two broad characteristics for each type. Igneous rocks are the ones that have the most crystals in them. They are the only ones that can have holes, which is the result of air being blown into lava during a violent eruption. They also look like they have a grainier quality overall. Sediment rocks seem like they have a smoother quality to them, at least for a part. And with metamorphic rocks, you can find more erratic weaving patterns. Remember, they are made of other rocks that have been transformed into something else, so you find a bit of the qualities of sediments and igneous rocks in them. Alright, this gives us a tiny foundation on which we'll be able to expand in the future. Now, we are going to bounce back to a more artistic kind of analysis. As artists, we need to understand the various textures, forms, and colors rocks can take. If we take a look at the rocks library on textures.com, you can see right away that they are arranged by their function, environment, roughness, or sizes. I downloaded some textures to study. I wanted to focus on rocks that you can find along coasts, especially these ones with the yellow moss and what I think are mushrooms on top of them. They are smooth, with some broad cracks and vibrant touches of color that really give them a strong identity. I also love that darker shade at the bottom caused by water. The first aspect we want to understand is the silhouette. Rock formations have to be observed as a unique entity, as a coherent whole. In order to paint them right, you have to look at the broad silhouette and not the individual separations between rocks. If you start to focus on and think about every smaller rock as a single entity, you're likely going to make them look too unique and contrasted when you get to draw them, especially in a game in which we want them to stay in the background. Those rocks are eroded. They don't have sharp corners or edges. Even around the cracks, the stone looks soft, its edges beveled. This means that we won't get too sharp shadow transitions as well. For one, here we are looking at a cloudy outdoor scene, so those stones are quite evenly lit. But also, and in similar light conditions, round forms will have softer shadow transitions than sharp volumes. The moss and the white stains tend to appear more on the top of the rock, maybe because they need sunlight to thrive. But the moss is also mostly present around cracks where it can find humidity. The darker shade at the bottom of the picture seems to be due to the former presence of water, maybe due to the tide of the sea. In those areas, there is no moss. As far as colors are concerned, if you look up close, you can find a mix of grays, browns, vibrant touches of yellow, a dark shade at the bottom, black in the cracks, white stains, but also subtle touches of green and bronze. In order to make our assets look believable, we will have to replicate that grain and details. Finally, the inner shapes look like rounded rectangles. Not strictly speaking, but you can definitely see some geometric patterns in there. It reminds me of Voronoi diagrams, which are used a lot to generate procedural rock textures and organic crackle effects. This wraps up this case study. I invite you to do that kind of analysis for every type of rock you want to paint. It just takes a few minutes, it's deeply interesting, and this habit will make you a way better artist in the long run. Now, head on to part 2, where I'll show you how to block in mossy rock sprites inspired by the ones we just saw in Krita.